Prang, good morning. I'm going to ask you to unmute. I already did. Good to go.
Good morning. Yes,
Good
I was,
morning.
was going to say I didn't have permission for just a second ago, but thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Before we start, I'd like to just tell everyone that doesn't know much about you and who you are. You've got an incredible resume. So if you don't mind, I just want to tell everybody about you and everything that you and your office are in charge of. And then I know that you have a presentation for us. And I'm going to give you access as a co-host to share if that's something that you're going to
Oh,
do.
I'm not going to do it, but on the team on the call is Candy Ng.
Okay.
She'll run
Oh,
for
perfect.
access.
She's already asked for access, so that's great. So for everyone that doesn't know, Assessor Jeff Prang, he basically oversees the largest local property assessment office. I think he was elected in correct me if I'm wrong, Assessor Prang in 2014. Assessor Prang manages, I think, over $2 trillion in real estate, and about $27 billion of revenue that come from the county assessor's office. I think nearly about 30 years in public service. Assessor Prang began his career in the assessor's office and served about 18 years on the West Hollywood Council, including 4 terms as a mayor, focusing on housing, economic development, and LGBTQ plus rights. Under his leadership, the office completed a $120 million modernization initiative, earning Los Angeles County the prestigious Certificate of Excellence in Assessment Administration twice. Assessor Prang also served as the 2025 president of the California Assessors Association, guiding efforts to ensure fairness in property assessments statewide. He holds a degree from Michigan State University, James Madison College, and a certificate from Harvard University's Kennedy School of Government. Assessor Prang lives in Baldwin Hills with his husband, Ray Viscara, and an award-winning music director. Assessor Prang, first things first, I want to thank you. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today. I only wish more people in positions of service took the time to truly speak with and listen, more importantly, to the people that they serve. The fact that you're willing to spend time educating homeowners, answering questions, and having real conversations says a lot. And I'm sure I speak for everybody that's on the Zoom with us today, really are grateful for your time this morning. Assessor Prang, I know that you have a presentation to share with us today, but before we get to the presentation, I have one kind of a tee-up question.
Sure.
And there's a lot of misconception, I've been reading a lot about you and some of the interviews that you've done, and you always get the question of ULA, and I'm like, no, 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 that's a city thing, not a county thing. But what's the biggest? I would say if there's a single biggest misconception homeowners have about the assessor's office, what would that be?
Well, the biggest misconception that is just relentless
Hmm.
is that people think that I'm the guy who collects taxes. And that I set tax rates. I do neither. The
Hmm.
auditor controller is the one who applies your tax rates, and the tax collector is the one who collects your taxes. It's
Hmm.
actually right there in the title.
Yeah.
So we're constantly confusing. Actually, interestingly, about 70% of the phone calls and emails that we get in our office are tax collector emails.
Yeah.
We handle the low-level ones just so we're not pushing people around, but that's
Yeah.
a big confusion.
Well, thank you for that. If I were to take a guess, I would guess you would say exactly that. It's
Right.
just it's always the same exact thing. And even with us, when we're selling property, whether it's supplemental taxes or whatever have you, it's always an county tax assessor. They're not the ones who collect your taxes.
Well, I always tell I always emphasize that I'm not the tax assessor. I'm
Yeah.
just the assessor. When you say tax assessor, you're conflating two different offices. And here's what happens.
Yeah.
If you call the county and say, I want the tax assessor, 9 out of 10 times you want the tax collector.
Hmm.
But 100% of the time you're going to be sent to my office, and then you're going to be annoyed because we're not the ones who can help you fix that problem.
Yes.
I also find it interesting, just from a historical perspective, is that there is not, it has never been a position in the United States of tax assessor.
Hmm.
That's never been what it's the name of it, but that's what everybody calls it. It's really interesting how something which has never been the name of the position is commonly referred to that way. But
That is. Well, I'm gonna remove myself from the spotlight here, and I'm gonna give you the reins, and if you don't mind sharing your presentation, I know that your office has already done that. Is going to start doing that right now, and then I'll come back and ask you a few follow-up questions.
sure. All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you and uh, Mike inviting me to participate in this webinar this morning, and look forward to. I think this is the first time I've presented to the John Hart Real Estate Office, and um, so I'm looking forward to telling you some things about my office and some of the programs and services that we provide. Just to get started, as a bit of an overview on the office, I am, as assessor, I'm one of 3 countywide elected officials. Um, Very few people know that about the assessor, but everybody does know the other two uh, countywide officials. That's the sheriff and the district attorney. My office is responsible for locating and establishing the value for all taxable property in the county. Um, uh, as as you mentioned in the introduction, my department is the largest local property assessment agency in the United States. We have 1,400 employees, a budget of $285 million. There's about 2.5 million real property parcels and business assessments in LA County that last year were valued at $2.2 trillion. These values are the foundation for the property tax system, which last year generated over $27 billion in revenues, which go to public schools, municipal services, and county services, such as police, libraries, roads, hospitals, et cetera. In a lot of ways, the assessor's office is the most important local government office because no other agency can do their job until we've done ours. And if we miss the mark, potential property tax revenue that should be collected is left untapped. Now, our role in the property tax administrative system is one piece of a complex puzzle. In a lot of ways, the system was designed for maximum public confusion. And the way it works is when you purchase a property, you record a deed. Or if you do new construction, you get a permit from the local permitting authority, usually the city. Those permits and deeds come to my office, and we assign an appraiser to determine the value. We then turn over that data to the auditor controller, um, which is the one that applies the tax rates, the direct assessments, et cetera. And then that data is then turned over to the treasurer tax collector, who sends the bills and collects the payments. My primary job is the production of what we call the annual assessment roll, which is really just the inventory of all taxable property in the county, which includes obviously land and buildings, but it also includes business, personal property, which is defined as furniture, fixtures, equipment, and machinery. We also assess commercial and general aviation aircraft, mobile homes, boats, and for some reason, racehorses. The assessment roll serves a couple of critical functions. It's the foundation for the property tax system, but it also helps local government plan their budgets in anticipation of property tax revenues, and it also provides some insight as to the health of the local real estate market. Just earlier this month, my office released the 2026 assessment roll forecast. Despite impacts from last year's fires and a lot of depression in the real estate office market, this year's assessment roll is projected to have a 3.9 increase in taxable property values over last year, netting the value of all taxable property in the county at, again, even further beyond 2.2 trillion. Biggest contributor to that increase was property transfers, essentially what you do, the buying and selling of property. That added about $47 billion in assessed value. The other big factor this year was the Proposition 13 cost of living adjustment, which is capped annually at 2%. That added about $43 billion to the assessment roll. And finally, we expect an increase of about $10.5 billion due to new construction, although that was kind of offset by what we call a decline in value reduction. That's properties that are worth less today than they're assessed at. That's we remove about $11 billion from the assessment roll to reflect those reductions. To give you an idea what this looks like in the local market, this table on your screen displays the 2025 assessment roll for Burbank and La Cañada Flint Ridge. We're going to be updating these numbers when the current fiscal year closes at the end of June. But specifically looking at Burbank, there's about 22,000 single-family residences, about 3,200 apartment buildings, and 3,000 commercial industrial properties. In 2025, Burbank grew at 2.6% in assessed value, or about $54 million. The total assessed value for the city is at $34.2 billion. La Cañada, there's about 7,000 single-family residences, 70 apartment buildings, and 290 commercial industrial properties. Last year, property values grew at 4.3% over the previous year, or about a $465 million change. And the total net assessed value for La Cañada Flint Ridge is $11.2 billion. Looking at median sales prices for single-family homes, the La Cañada Flint Ridge reached a median sales price of over $2 million. This will be important in a minute when I talk about Prop 19. Additionally, Pasadena, Burbank, La Cañada showed a decrease in median sales price of 1.4, 5.4, and 18% respectively, but I wouldn't be alarmed by these decreases. In these areas where there's a small sales volume, one or two anomalies can throw off those median values. Overall, median sales price for a single-family home county-wide, not including condominiums, remains stable at around $950,000. So let me move on to talk a little bit about Proposition 19. I'm sure you all hear a lot about this. This was a measure adopted by the voters in 2020. It was primarily sponsored by the California Association of Realtors. Prop 19 does two primary things. The first component of Prop 19 allows a homeowner who's over 55 years old, severely disabled, or the victims of a natural disaster such as the recent fires to sell their home, buy a new one, and transfer their tax base to the new home within California without reassessment. You can also transfer that tax base up to 3 times during your life. If you're married, you can transfer it 6 times, 3 times each. So essentially, once you're 55 years old, your tax base is portable for the rest of your life. There is a caveat, though. If you buy a home that is of greater value than the one you're selling, you'll get a new blended tax rate. More or less, the like-for-like transfer value will be honored with the tax base, and the value over that will be assessed at market value, and you'll get a new adjusted rate, which will still be less than the market rate. The second component deals with family inheritance. This part has proved to be very unpopular about Prop 19. It greatly reduces the previous tax benefits for transferring property between family members, specifically between parents and children, and in some cases, grandparents and grandchildren. Prior to Prop 19, under a law known as Prop 58, you could inherit your parents' property and pay the same tax base that they did, no matter the price of the home. Additionally, if your parents had additional property, such as a rental, the first $1 million in value was exempt from reassessment. Under Prop 13, that's all changed. Now, the only home your children can inherit with the tax benefit is your primary residence. And for them to qualify, the property must be the principal residence of the parent. Your child must move into the property within 1 year of the transfer and file the homeowner's exemption. And only the principal residence of a parent or grandparent qualifies. Other properties, including vacation homes, rental homes, no longer qualify, and they will be reassessed at market value. Prop 19 also limits the value of primary residence and the tax base that your children or grandchildren can inherit. Only the first $1 million counts toward the eligibility of this benefit. So if you have a home worth over $1 million, your child will inherit that home and get a new blended rate. The first $1 million in value will be at the rate you're paying, and anything over $1 million will be assessed at market value. And that takes me to the next issue I want to mention, because it's one of the biggest issues we face in public service, and that is what to do when a property owner dies. There's a law that says when a property owner dies, the heirs need to notify us within 150 days by filing what's called the change in ownership statement, death of real property owner form. Almost nobody does this in a timely manner, and failure to do so will complicate inheritance, transfers, and estate planning. It will also likely lead to penalties and supplemental tax bills. So when there is a death in the family, it is imperative that the assessor's office be notified, because when there's a death, even if the property is in a trust, the date of the death of the property owner is the date the clock starts ticking on a new assessment. And speaking of trusts, while we all know that they're useful tools in estate planning and inheritance, there seems to be a common misconception that a trust is like an autopilot, and once the property is a trust, the trust takes over, and that's simply not the case. A trust is really just a set of instructions as to what needs to happen with property at the time of death. You still need to, even if the property is a trust, you still need to file the change in ownership, death of real property owner form. If there's inheritance, you need to file a Prop 19 application. You need to file the homeowner's exemption, and you need to move into the property within 12 months. One of the things I just have referenced a couple times was the homeowner's exemption. I want to mention that briefly. My office does manage, while we're not a revenue office, we do manage a number of programs to help people save property money on their property taxes. There's programs for seniors, disabled veterans, nonprofits, religious institutions. But the most popular is the homeowner's exemption. It is a tax savings program for anybody who owns a home and lives in that home as their primary residence. It's not a super huge savings. It reduces your assessed value by $7,000 and saves you about $70 a month on your taxes, but a year on your taxes. But we estimate that close to 50% of all homeowners in LA County who qualify don't apply for it simply because they've never heard of it before. So I always like to emphasize this with realtors because it's a helpful tip if you do social media or direct mail marketing, offering people a tip to save a little bit of money might catch their attention. I also recommend that when your clients go into closing, that you give them a copy of the homeowner's exemption so they can start saving money right away. Also, you have to have the homeowner's exemption in order to take advantage of Prop 19's family inheritance benefit. Now I wanted to talk about a couple of things that come up rather commonly when I speak with realtors, and in anticipation of a question, I'm just going to answer it in advance. People are always asking when property gets reassessed. One thing I can tell you, we do not drive around and look at homes and determine to reassess them. Under Prop 13, your property is assessed at the time of transfer or when there is new construction. So when you purchase your home, our job is to determine what the market value of the property is at the time of purchase. In most cases, it's the purchase price, but not always. If it's not an arm's length transaction, if you get a special deal from a relative and you pay less than market, that will not be reflected in your taxes. Your taxes need to reflect market value. Prop 13 says we assess property at 1% at the time of purchase, and then it will never go up by more than 2% a year. So if you get a tax bill that goes up by more than 2% a year and you didn't do new construction or change the ownership structure, then it's not your property taxes went up. It's probably like schools or roads or something else, which are not limited by the 2% restriction. There are the other times that when you might be reassessed, as I mentioned, deals with change of ownership or new construction. So change in ownership can be something as simple as adding or removing a name from a deed. Anytime you change that ownership on that piece of paper, that is potentially a reassessable change in ownership. So what happens a lot, people think that they get reassessed upon refinancing. You don't, unless when you take the property out of a trust to refinance and put it back in. If you add or delete names, that will trigger a reassessment. But if it remains the same, it will not. Common mistake might be with inheritance. There might be several siblings that inherit their parents' home. One of them is living there. A couple of years later, the others who aren't living there want their names off the deed. They file a quitclaim deed, and the remaining sibling in the home suddenly gets a reassessment proportional to those that were removed. You have to be very careful about those things because transfers of ownership between siblings is not exempt from reassessment. The other time you might get reassessed is when you do new construction. If you add something that wasn't there, if you're increasing square footage, that will trigger a reassessment. We do not reassess the entire property. We just add the market value of the new construction to your underlying Prop 13 base year. So if your tax base was 500,000 and you add a $100,000 ADU, your new tax base will be 600,000, even if the market value of the property is say $1 million. There's some exceptions to that. If you're doing remodeling or just replacing what's already there, such as replacing a roof, remodeling a bathroom or a kitchen, you may need a permit for those, but they're not typically reassessable. The only transfers between family members that are exempt from reassessment are transfers between spouses and children or grandchildren. If you get married and you add your spouse to your deed, that's exempt from reassessment. You get a divorce and remove somebody, the same notation. I want to move on to something that's adjacent to new construction, because once you do new construction, you'll inevitably get a supplemental tax bill. We do get a lot of questions about supplemental tax bills and how they work. A supplemental tax bill is just simply, it's the reconciliation between the old tax rate and the new tax rate when that happens between assessment years. It's important to note that when you're purchasing a home, if you purchase a home between January and June, you'll get two supplemental bills reconciling the old year and the new year. And if you purchase in the last 6 months of the year, you'll get a single supplemental bill. A lot of property owners are confused when they get those bills, particularly if they set up an impound account to pay taxes and insurance. It's important to note that supplemental bills do not get paid for through an impound account. If you think that they do and you don't pay it when you receive the bill, you're going to get a 10% penalty, and there's virtually nothing you can do to get around that penalty. Another common question deals with property records. We get a lot of questions from folks saying that the records they see on my website do not match what the city has at their building and safety department. Maybe the city has a 2,000 square foot home and ours shows a 2,500 square foot home. That usually would suggest to me that there may have been unpermitted construction. But the city records are the ones that you need to rely on. We assess what we know to be there. We don't opine on whether that's legally there. And despite the fact it could be on our records, the city could force you to take it down or to change it. And if you have discrepancies on your property, that sometimes happens over a long period of time. If you purchase property in a certain condition, the records don't reflect everything that's there, you can file what's called a property data change request form. You won't be penalized for that. We just want to update the records to ensure that they're accurate. And before we wrap up, I just wanted to share one of the big highlights of progress that my office has made. When I was elected in 2014, I made it a priority to modernize our decades-old mainframe, green screen, DOS-based technology platform with an updated digitized cloud-based system. We digitized all 2.5 million of our property files, which, believe it or not, were previously kept in paper form. And this not only changed the way we serve property owners, but it enhanced the efficiency of operations and productivity of our employees here at the Assessor's Office. This became really important when the wildfires struck last year in January. They destroyed nearly 20,000 properties across the county. The resulting loss in taxable property is substantial and will significantly affect property tax revenues for many years. We estimated there was about $12 billion in reductions, so much so that we had to recalculate our property growth estimate last year. There was potentially a $250 million loss in revenue to cities, school districts, and the county. But because we had just went live with our new technology system a couple of months before the fires, we were able to build tools that helped us to reassess all the damaged properties within 90 days. That saves about 45,000 personnel hours, which allowed me to redirect those staff to eliminate longstanding transaction backlogs and enroll an additional $13 billion in assessed value that in effect compensated for all the lost value due to the fires. What that meant for local government is that they didn't have to cut jobs, they didn't have to cut services because because of our technology advances. It meant that the fires created a revenue neutral impact on local government, which was really meaningful to save jobs and services. One other topic I wanted to mention, for a lot of you who own your own small business, you probably know that you have to file every year something called the business property statement on furniture, equipment, machinery, fixtures. There's a law that says that you have to, if you have a business and you have equipment valued at $5,000 or more, you got to pay taxes on that. The challenge is that a $5,000 assessment assessed at taxed at 1%, just like real estate, will generate $50. But we did an internal study which showed it cost me about $175 in order to process one of those assessments. So we were losing money on every single one of them. So 2 weeks ago, I asked the Board of Supervisors to raise the minimum threshold for reporting from 5,000 to 10,000, which is the legal maximum. This means that about 43,000 small businesses are going to be relieved from having to fill out this paperwork and pay this tax starting January 1st of next year. And finally, last couple things. My new technology system has provided some great new services for property owners. The first one that I want to emphasize, and I urge you to share this with your prospective clients, it's called the Homeowner Alert service. So you're probably all familiar that in recent years, there's been an increase in title fraud. People use identity theft to change the name on your deed, then they leverage all types of debt against it, and by the time you learn about it, you're in a heap of trouble. But the Homeowner Alert is a free service that anybody who owns property can now register their email address on our website. And anytime something is recorded on your deed, such as a grant deed, deed of trust, etc., you'll get an email notification within 48 hours. If you don't sign up, the first notification you get is a letter in the mail from the registrar, usually about 30 to 45 days later. And that's just too long of a time to respond when there's a scam in effect. You could pay for a private firm that like LifeLock, which may monitor these for you, but this is something that's easily accessible to anybody who owns property, and it's free. The Homeowner Alert is part of what we call the e-service account, which allows you to register your own profile on our website with your property and allow you to do things online that you used to have to do in person, such as mailing address updates, filing for the homeowner's exemption, property data change requests. It'll be adding more functions in the years ahead. And the last thing is we do have on our website, we have a special spot reserved exclusively for real estate professionals. We call it the Real Estate Toolkit. On there, we put a lot of information that is specifically designed for realtors. There's information that will help you become a more informed professional. There's information we encourage you to cut and paste and share with your client base. There's also tools such as supplemental tax estimators and Prop 19 tax estimators that will give you a good idea of what the taxes will look like if you take advantage of Prop 19. So thank you once again, Mike and Harut, for hosting this webinar. You can also subscribe to our newsletter on our website, and we send out helpful tips every month for real estate professionals and property owners. And appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I look forward to answering your questions.
That's a whole lot of great information. I always remember every single time I received a check for a penny. Like they sent me a check for a penny. It cost them $1.75 to send me this check for a penny. So kind of very similar to what you did from raising the value for small businesses from 5,000 to 10,000. So thank you for that. I've got a really quick question about what you just went over, because that's something that we are very particular about here at John Hart in the way we speak to some of our contacts in our database that we don't have addresses for. The first thing that we ask for and we tell them is we'd like your address because we'd like to send you a copy of your grant deed once a year. So that tool that you have that automatically gives homeowners a notification if there's any kind of deed transfer, because deed fraud is on the rise, and you're going to get a lot more with AI and everything else that's going on right now. So kudos to you for doing that. I wanted to start out with that. So thank you.
Well, I could really, I do want to appeal to all of you to help me with that. I don't have a lot of resources to promote the program,
Mhm.
um, and one of the reasons I really value my relationship with realtors because
Mhm.
we're all in the same business,
Yep.
and I believe that I've got resources and information that would be valuable to you in communicating with your clients and sharing something that is helpful to people, such as how to save money on their homeowner's exemption or how to protect their home with a homeowner alert. Post it on social media if you do email marketing or whatever. But I would just put that as a tagline onto everything.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, it's the amount of deed transfers that are happening right now without under the homeowner's nose is incredible, and this is why we're so particular. And like you said, we're your distribution vehicle, and I'm hoping that everybody here and all, we're about 1,000 people strong with our companies. We'll be that distribution vehicle that you're looking for. We are going to get in touch. We've been doing it all these years, but now that you've said it. I say it enough times, but nobody listens to me anymore. But now you say it, everyone's going to start calling all their homeowners. We have about 500,000 people in our database that we can connect with and
oh,
talk
that
to
would
them
be
about
fabulous.
yeah, yeah. The gentleman that introduced us, Mike Babahanian, actually had a very, very good question. You already addressed it, and I just want to make sure that we emphasize it to everybody here listening, because the deed transfer, it's not just a sale of the property, right? That automatically sets a trigger for a reassessment. Even if I form a family trust, for example, Assessor Prang, and I take it from my individual name to my family trust name, that correct me if I'm wrong, it triggers a reassessment as well.
Uh, so anytime you transfer property between individuals or legal entities,
Mhm.
that is a legal transfer. And forgive me, I forgot to introduce Robert Izasaki from my office, who's on. He's an expert in trusts and changes in ownership. So if you ask me a question that's too hard, he'll answer it. But when you can transfer your property into a trust. How you do it matters, and whether or not it will be reassessed.
Hmm.
Essentially, if the ownership before the trust and the ownership in the trust are the same, you are excused from reassessment. If you make major changes in terms of the ownership structure, that could trigger a reassessment. Robert, did I get that right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So a follow-up question, would an LLC, a single member LLC, Robert, be the same?
So, like the assessor was explaining earlier, so there's when it comes to legal entity situations, it's a little bit different from trusts.
Hmm.
So, I guess when thinking about those, keeping them separate is a good thing. If you have an individual who owns a piece of property at 100%, they transfer title to an LLC where they are the 100% owner, sole member.
Hmm.
There shouldn't be any reassessment. One thing that the property owner may want to consider is any sort of marital property rights that are involved with
Hmm.
both the property itself and the LLC membership interest. Sometimes that can come into play. So just something for them and their, counsel or professional advisor to keep in mind.
Fantastic. And I only, my next question is what one of the slides that you showed. You said LA County has had 16 years of growth, and there's no single entity that we have that has more access to data than your office, Assessor Prang. So I'm curious, and I know that you don't have a crystal ball, but with access to so much data, with on millions of properties, what trends are you currently seeing in LA County as far as real estate values and more importantly, homeowner behavior? Are you seeing that we are going to have many more years of growth, or are you seeing kind of a flat line?
We're we're anticipating, at least in the short term, continued overall growth where there are some exceptions. So one of the things that persists is that the higher interest rates and the reduced sales volume is keeping single fa family home values stable, in some cases increasing slightly. We are seeing dramatic downturns in office space, particularly downtown Los Angeles. You're probably seeing that a lot of office towers downtown are selling for 50 cents or less on the dollar from where they were before. The county just purchased the gas company tower as its new government headquarters. The gas company tower was last assessed at $643 million. The county bought it for $200 million. And in hindsight, we may have paid too much. So if you're in the market for an office tower, now's the time to get one. There's also a lot. The fashion district is just struggling. We're seeing that the condominium market in some parts of the county is starting to soften, and we're even hearing that there are some areas where multi-family units are these are all trends that we're monitoring very closely. One of the things I've done in the last couple of years to try to do a better job of evaluating these changes is we hired a data analytic unit where we hired a bunch of data scientists who spend their time looking at all this data to try to come up with conclusions about what's going to happen in terms of forecasting and to provide better information to policymakers such as the city council or the board of supervisors. But the individual housing market is holding things together despite some of these other developing dips.
We are getting a bunch of questions in the chat as well, and I do want to be mindful of your time, and I have a few questions that I have in mind, especially after you went over your slides and your presentation, and one of the things that I believe, and I'm hoping that I'm not I didn't read it incorrectly, the low value ordinance, because I get a lot of questions about value and can someone, if they feel like the value of their property is assessed incorrectly, can they come to your office and ask for a reassessment? Is that something that your office handles?
There's no reason to do that because my guys wouldn't put the value on there if it wasn't right. That's a joke. I'm sorry. So yes, so if you disagree with our valuation, the first thing you should do is call the office and talk to the appraiser. And if you have any evidence that will support your opinion of value, you should provide that. And if the appraiser agrees, they can make an adjustment. If you don't come to a resolution that way, you can file an assessment appeal with the Assessment Appeals Board. The Assessment Appeals Board is not part of my office. That's a separate government entity. It comes under the Board of Supervisors. And the way it works is you go either before a hearing officer or a 3-member panel and argue your case. There'll be somebody from my office arguing why we came up with the number that we did, and then they will make a determination on whether you're right or not.
I want to shift focus a little bit, and I want to go to homeowners right now that are, or even business owners that are in trouble,
Right.
and behind on property taxes, and they haven't paid their property taxes in a year or two, because we're seeing quite a bit of that right now. How does your office handle that? If I'd like relief, and I would like to create some type of agreement with your office, is there a way to handle that online?
So those types of issues are not within the purview of my office. Those come under the treasurer and tax collector. But what I can tell you is that there's things available. It's not very robust, and it's not very not very forgiving. The treasurer tax collector's office will always tell you, even if you can't pay your taxes, if you could pay something that shows a level of goodwill that is helpful, that you can, in some cases, set up a payment plan. The payment plans are not negotiable. There's 1 or 2 different varieties, and that's all there is. The tax collector does not have discretion to, everything that we do is on a piece of paper from the Revenue and Taxation Code or from the Constitution. So even if there's something we think would make sense to do, if the paper doesn't tell us we can do it, we can't do it.
Fantastic.
So there are limited things you can do in terms of payments. Almost impossible to avoid penalties
Mm.
unless you can demonstrate that you had like extenuating circumstances, such as a medical issue or were one of the fire victims from last year. In rare cases, they can cancel penalties, but it's very difficult to avoid those. The system is not really is not very merciful when it comes to people who are unable to pay their taxes, but the tax collector can give you all the options that are available.
I want to jump to one of the questions from our audience here. In particular, I was going to ask you a question about Prop 19, but Mike asks it in a different way. He says, under Prop 19, if there's a divorce situation, who can take advantage of Prop 19? Both parties or the first one who files?
I don't know what the order is, but only
Mhm.
one can take advantage of the tax base transfer. Robert, is there a? I think that they've got to make that determination. I don't think we do. Do you know, Robert? You're on mute.
Yeah, so I don't believe that the statute provides any guidance on that. Only, as the assessor said, only one party can take the tax base with them. Generally, when we get these questions, if the divorce has not already been finalized, we recommend that that be a provision that's set forth in the property settlement agreement that's directed by the court. Otherwise, we do generally accept the first request for a tax-based transfer as the one we're going to apply it to. Anything that comes in afterwards, we'll end up denying.
Thank you. Anthony here asks a question. He says, if my parent bought a home for 1.5 million and then they die, it's worth 2.6. Will it fully be reassessed or will it be assessed at 1.6 million since it will be an additional $1 million in tax-based savings if I inherit it and move in? He's
This will be
going
one of the. This will be one of those blended rates.
to.
So the if they purchased the home was purchased at 1.5 million, and let's assume that 1.5 million is the current assessed value, they will be able to transfer that 1.5 million assessed value uh, to the child when they die, but the additional 1.1 million will be which is the difference between the assessed value and the current market value. That will be assessed at market value, so you get a new blended rate.
Okay, good. Okay, we have about 10 minutes remaining, and I do want to make sure that I address all the questions that we have here. But if you don't mind going a little bit deeper on the supplemental taxes, because we own an escrow company, and obviously from the real estate company, we get a lot of questions about the supplemental tax bill that our buyers get after close of escrow. Why are so many homeowners surprised by supplemental tax bills? Is it because they're not told in advance? What can we do as agents, as escrow, to better educate our homeowners or home buyers? Well, how do we prepare them? Is there something that we can give them from your office that will give them an idea of what's to come?
You know, I've always thought it would be helpful in the real estate profession to put
Mhm.
together a kind of a uniform checklist of what to expect once you've bought your home, because it's not just stuff from our office, but there's a number of different places, government agencies that you'll be dealing with, and you should kind of know what's coming next. The supplemental tax bills is probably one of the biggest ones.
Mhm.
Because if somebody doesn't tell you what's coming, the first time you are aware of it is when the bill shows up in the mail. That's where it confuses people, and a lot of people discount that because they think that because they set up an impound account that uh, it doesn't count. But I do believe, for your office,
Mhm.
maybe doing a little brainstorming about all those different details, different government agencies, giving them a one pager saying, here's what's going to happen next. You're going to get, you know, you need to sign up for the homeowner's exemption. You need to anticipate a supplemental tax bill. You
Mhm.
need to anticipate getting a whole bunch of mailers from private companies that are pretending to be government companies trying to get money out of you to pay for a grant deed or to pay for a reassessment and know how to evaluate those as being legitimate or not. A lot of people try to scam new homeowners, as you probably know. I
Yeah.
think a document like that would be really helpful.
That's actually a great idea. We'll get right on that. and we'll make sure that we put that as part of our closing checklist. The deed fraud. I want to go back to the deed fraud, and Ralph Santos here has a good question because when when a homeowner does see that there's some type of fraud, they do get an alert. What are the steps that they take in order for them to reverse the transfer of deed that happened without their permission?
So the program, the Homeowner Alert, is a joint program between my office, the Registrar Recorder, and the Department of Business and Consumer Affairs. So we maintain the database since we have the ownership records. The registrar is where the actual fraud takes place. Department of Consumer and Business Affairs are the ones that will help connect you with the proper legal authorities. If something is recorded on your deed, you'll get this, and you subscribe to the Homeowner Alert, you will get an email from the county, usually within about 48 hours, and alerting you that something has been recorded. We will not know whether it's fraud or not, but you will. And the email will, if you suspect it is fraud, there will be instructions on how to contact the Department of Business and Consumer Affairs, who will get you in touch with law enforcement, and that you begin the process of trying to close those gaps that have made
Fantastic.
fraudulent recording possible.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Richie asks actually a question that I think that you kind of covered it, but he does get into the weeds a little bit here. My client over 55 downsized in November 2025 from 1.9 million to 1.32 million that he purchased. They did so because of Prop 19. They are also doing an ADU and adding square footage, which will be completed in a few months. How do they go about getting their home reassessed under Prop 19, first for downsizing and then for the ADU? Does it happen automatically, or they still need to fill out a form? You mentioned obviously the steps for Prop 19, but if you don't mind just addressing that question.
Sure. Those are two separate transactions. One is a Prop 19 transfer. The other one is new construction. You obviously need permits from the city or from unincorporated county if you live in the county, and they'll be valued separately and then aggregated. So our Prop 19, if you are downsizing, I'm going to let Robert explain how the base year transfer to a downsized home will affect them.
Yeah, sure. So the first thing that the homeowner is going to want to do is download and complete and submit a copy of the Proposition 19 base year value transfer for persons over 55 years of age. That will let us know that property's been sold, a replacement property has been purchased, and they want to transfer over the original property's lower tax base to the replacement property. So once that's done, they have their new property with their old property's tax base. New construction is then completed. We'll then, as the assessor discussed earlier, value the new construction and add that value to the transferred tax base. So that's kind of the mechanics of how that will work.
So, for example, let's say that they had a $1 million home and that was originally purchased for $100,000, so their tax base is $100,000 on that $1 million home. They then buy a $700,000 home. They can transfer that $100,000 tax base to their new $700,000 home. Then they build a $100,000 ADU. We would then add the assessed value of that $100,000 ADU to the underlying tax base, which is $100,000. The new tax base would be $200,000, even though they paid $700,000 for the home.
Hey, Robert, Mike's asking if he can have your email address so he can email you after the Zoom here. I'll email you separately and ask you if there's any way that anyone from the office can connect with you directly. But with the interest of time, gentlemen, I want to make sure that I'm mindful of the time that we have left, and I want to give you the kind of the floor and ask you if there's anything that you'd like to share other than what we've already gone over, that you feel like as realtors, as real estate professionals, can do to help your office. Because the more we educate our homeowners, our home buyers, our home sellers, our community, the better off we'll be. Is there anything that you really would love nothing more than real estate professionals do more of?
I think it is helpful for realtors to know some of the basic what I call retail issues that my office deals with the public, because invariably it's helpful information that will make your clients better informed and help them to avoid penalties and supplemental taxes. Uh, Obviously, there's programs that are good for the average person, the Homeowner Alert and the Homeowner Exemption. Letting people know about changes in ownership due to Prop 13 or the death of a property owner. If they know what they're doing in those cases, they're going to avoid a lot of complications and potential back taxes. I really do try to structure the speeches that I give as information that I think would be useful for realtors, both for your own edification and for you to share with your clients. Candy is going to make sure that you get a copy of all the slides in the presentation today. But I would just say familiarize yourself with most of the elements of that presentation and help share it widely.
Robert, anything on your end that you'd love nothing more for us to kind of be the voice and amplify some of the things that you'd like us to do?
I would say that I would echo everything that the assessor just said, and also again reiterate what he mentioned about our website. We work really hard to take in all the input that we receive from our partners in the real estate industry, common questions, areas of concern, put them in that real estate toolkit across the entire website. So it's a really handy, one-stop shop for a lot of the information that our office has for you.
And there's some questions. I don't know if we get to them. I see people with their hands up, but I put my email in the chat, and
Yep.
You're welcome to reach out to me if we don't answer your question, and we'll be happy to explain it.
That means everything. I can't believe you just did that. So thank you for that. I will. I hope that everybody is mindful of and respectful of your time, and anything that they can read online on the website, especially. Please do so before you email Assessor Prang. He's very very busy with everything that's going on in real estate in LA County. That's a lot of property that his office is in charge of. Candy, I really appreciate the back and forth these last couple of weeks. You put this all together. Mike, I really appreciate you for connecting us with the office. Robert and Assessor Prang, thank you so much for your time. You have no idea how much this means to us, especially the fact that you've told my agents to actually connect with their clients and educate them further about exactly what homeowners should know more of and do more of. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Great to see you all. Have a great rest of the week.
Thank you. Robert, thank you again. Bye-bye.